Sir, you are host now.
Okay, thank you very much, Feroz.
Okay.
You can carry on if you want.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank
thank you very much. Hi, guys. I hope you can hear my voice. At any moment of time you feel you can't hear my voice, you can put on the chat so that I know. As usual, I'll repeat the methodology as I do the presentation. The framework of the presentation is the same as the course material, but I take a lot of things from outside. Wherever I think your self-learning module is not able to explain, or I can add something more to get a proper understanding. So I do a little bit of changes. In case you want the PPT, you can write a mail to me. I will share my email ID. If you write an email to me, you can. I will send you my PPT to you, and you can stop me at any moment of time to either ask a question, or is there something that you wish to share out of experience, or something out of even you can share something out of context, because the idea is to engage. And as I said, there was a gentleman last time who talked about if the questions have to be only asked in English, you can, I only know English and Hindi. So we would keep ourselves to English and Hindi. For your own vernacular, other languages, you can talk to each other. I'm sure somebody would know the language. So, having said that, let me share my screen. And today we are talking about transnationalism, diaspora, transnationalism, and citizenship. In fact, it is a very interesting topic, because the more I was reading, the more I was finding there is so much to it that you cannot do justice to it in one class. And the PPT that I prepared also may span more than one classes. Maybe next class it'll spill over. We'll try and see how we go about. Should I wait for a minute or two, so that if there is somebody else also joining, or let's start as people will join, we can reiterate or something. So over the last so many weeks we have been talking about diaspora, we've been talking about migration. So let me give you a brief overview. We've all understood the fact that the story of human history is a story of migration. People were migrating from one place to another all the time. Now, initially, and those migrations were either voluntary or forced. Throughout human history, migrations have been either voluntary or forced. The first migration out of Africa, where modern human being evolved, possibly was voluntary, possibly it was forced, possibly the fact there were too many people and people wanted to explore more. So we do not know about the voluntary or forced, but subsequently all migrations have been either voluntary or forced. Voluntary in terms of a better deal, a better aspiration, for a job, for this, that, and the other. Forced has been out of droughts, natural and man-made causes. Natural causes includes floods, includes droughts, includes various things, and man-made causes includes war, includes other man-made issues. So the migration has always been a case. Now, interestingly, as migrations were going abroad, people started, or communities started naming places. Initially, there were no places to be named. As places started getting named, there was certainly a sense, there was an identity to a place. So the human or the person could say, I am from this place. So there was this relation, or an identity relation, or a relation to a place. Then, while these migrations have been going on in history, came the concept of citizenship. In fact, the city states of Greece started the first concept of citizenship. The Roman Empire had this citizenship concept where citizens were getting they were a part of the city state and they were getting some privilege, and that privilege had to be repaid in terms of taxes or military service and so on and so forth. So the concept of citizenship came in. We subsequently went on, and as things went on, came the concept of nations. The state was already created with the concept of city states. The state was there, and then came the concept of nation. And with nations, citizenship becomes a great belonging and an identity factor. So today, when a person moves, let's say, from India to the US, he leaves his ethnic identity behind and is a citizen of India, or he's a citizen of US, he's a citizen of Britain, and so on and so forth. The citizenship becomes a very important identity marker. And this identity marker also gives a sense of belonging to a person. But simultaneously, migrations were happening, and migrations of individuals and groups of people were happening when these people with a particular citizenship moved from a place which they called a homeland and moved to a place which was the hostland, which was hosting them, and they formed networks, was the start of the concept of diaspora. These people are scattering and they make their networks. That's the diaspora. So think about this thing. We have already two subjects that we are studying: migration studies and diaspora studies. And then another thing started happening. And again, this thing didn't happen, at a later stage, but it was happening always. It was happening there when people were traveling or when people were migrating. Remember, people carry what is called a culture. What is culture? Culture could be religion. Culture could be a way of life in terms of your food, the way you dress, the rituals that you do in your everyday thing. Everything is a part of culture. Now they were carrying their cultures, and inevitably, in each place, the community of people had a different culture. So whenever people were traveling, carrying their culture into a different culture, there was certainly a certain amount of intermingling that was happening. Then we see the concept of the fact that because of faster transportation and global connectivity, we have a concept called globalization, which has come in. And suddenly people have started saying that because of globalization, all these people who are traveling, who are migrating, are changing things. And the study of transnationalism started, a nationalism which is trans. But the fact is, it was not globalization or the connectivity, faster transport, or the faster media, or whatever, the internet. Things were already happening when the Arab traders came to India, or they came to Kerala down south. They left a part of their culture. When Portuguese traveled the world, they carried some part of their culture and took some part of the local culture. So inevitably, transnationalism is as old as migration, but transnationalism studies is a recent field, not so recent. Again, we will see as we go along in this presentation. It's an older field. So inevitably, people mistake globalization with transnationalism. These are two different things. We will see in the presentation. So let's start with the presentation. And again, as I said, these are too many different concepts we will try and do in this particular class. In case we are not, it will spill on to the next class. If all of you are able to understand these basic concepts of migration, uh, diaspora, citizenship, globalization, and transnationalism, more often than not, you will understand the larger part of this whole course. So I'll go a little slow to try and get you to understand. Again, as I said, we kind of did things on its head. We first did the concept of case studies. We talked about Indian diaspora, and we have come now on the theory. Either which way, the point is of understanding how this all goes about. So we go with the objectives as usual. Transnationalism, theories and types. There are various types of transnationalism, citizenship and its type. So inevitably, your SLM, the self-learning module, starts with transnationalism. I have done this change. I want to start with citizenship. Let's understand what is a country, what is a nation, what is citizenship before we go on to transnationalism. That way, I think you will be able to understand it much better. So let's start with countries. Countries are socially constructed, imagined communities of which people perceive themselves to be a part. In fact, a lot of things that we see or take out for granted in our normal day life are socially constructed. And imagine, that's how one of the definitions of countries are. There are multiple definitions, as I keep telling you in academics. It's always important to start with a definition and see who is defining that, because self-defined, there are a lot of self-defined definitions, as we had seen last time in diaspora, that people are themselves defining themselves as diaspora. So let's look at what is citizenship. Relationship between an individual and a state. Individual owes allegiance and in turns entitled to a protection. So it's kind of an extension of the feudal state in the Middle Ages or before, where the people of a kingdom owed their allegiance to the king, and in turn the king protected them. The concept of kingdom has translated now into the concept of state and a nation. Citizenship is the most privileged form of nationality. The broader terms denote various relations. Individual and a state do not necessarily confer political rights, but do imply other privileges. So, need not be a political right. In fact, in the first set of city-states of Greece, women and a lot of other, set of people did not have political rights. Only the men were allowed to vote. In fact, interestingly, even the American women had to fight for universal suffrage, which in India they got right from the independence. So India has been that much more progressive over history. Citizenship also is a term used in international law to denote all persons whom a state is entitled to protect. Contrary, nationality also serves to denote the relationship to a state of entities other than individual. So corporation, ship, so it's an Indian corporation, it's an Indian aircraft, it's an Indian ship. That's how nationality comes about. So citizenship, and then a little bit about history, as I always say, a great way to know how we are here today is to go back a little bit in history, gives you a sense of idea as to how it came about. First arose in towns and city-states of ancient Greece, generally applied to property owners, but not to women, slaves, or poorer members of the community. So you might be a citizen, but you may not have the political power. A citizen in a Greek city-state was entitled to vote and was liable to taxation and military service. So inevitably, it was, they had some rights and some responsibilities. And that's how the citizenship has traveled over a period of time. Romans first used citizenship as a device to distinguish the residents of the city of Rome from the people of whose territory Rome had acquired. Now, here we are talking about the Roman Empire. We have moved from a kingdom, we've moved into city-state, and we are talking about a kingdom. As the empires continued to grow, Romans granted citizenship to their allies. 212 CE, citizenship was extended to all free inhabitants. So citizenship is a pretty old concept. It's not a newer concept. Roman citizenship conferred important legal privileges within the empire. And then came the Middle Ages. The concept of national citizenship virtually disappeared in Europe. Middle Ages replaced that with a system of feudal rights and obligation. Remember, across the world during the Middle Ages, there were a lot of kingdoms. Kingdoms inevitably had the concept of a king. It was a feudal system. You owe allegiance to a king, and the king gives you protection. Modern concepts of citizenship crystallized in the 18th century during the American and the French Revolution, when the term citizen came to suggest the possession of certain liberties in the face of coercive powers of absolute monarchs. So inevitably, citizenship has, the term liberty along with it, and that's how it moved into, the modern state. Uh, did I move? Okay. In the modern times, with increasing migration, settlement of people across borders of the nation states have been readjusted to include a heterogeneous groups of people as citizens. To be a member of ethnic group is not identical with citizenship. Membership is a political interpretation completely distinguished from cultural category. So there are, and as things as time has flown by and things have changed and the migration continuing to be, and with the coming of nation states, there's a whole lot of confusion which has set in. Say, for example, when a person from, let's say, West Pakistan, from West Punjab, which was a part of India, the British India, migrated to the US, and subsequently the Indian subcontinent was partitioned. Where does he become a citizen of? Was he a citizen of India, or was he a citizen of, the new state of Pakistan or the new state of India? How does that thing work out? And suppose when he went, it was India, it was British India, and he or she still identifies with India, and now there are two nation states of India and Pakistan, and now three of Bangladesh. Look at his sense, his or her sense of identity. It's quite a lot of fractured identity, and that's where transnationalism comes in. Okay, let's carry on with citizenship right now. Post cosmopolitan citizenship is offered as an alternative to ethno nationalism. So, inevitably, let's say let's look at the fact that a person is from Punjab, he's a Punjabi. Now, within Punjabis, and if you see how ethnic identities keep on changing, identities in itself are not fixed categories for human beings, they keep on shifting. So, more often than not, with the coming of the nation state, it was the nation identity was a cosmopolitan or a post cosmopolitan identity. And that citizenship was that identity, and as an alternative to the ethno nationalism identity. With economic globalization and development of neoliberal strategies, the various forms of citizenship converge towards the emergence of transnational political, economic, and social obligations. Now, wherever people are going, obviously, people, when they go, they carry a culture. Not only they carry their culture, there is an economic, connection between those people and and from the place where they come from. Inevitably, it could be remittances, it could be investment. So globalization is a newer phenomena, and the term has been used because of the faster transportation, as well as interconnections, let's say with the internet or with the banking system or with the institutions, but people were moving all the time. And transnational political, economic, and social obligations, because at the end of the day, transnationalism is about people. Globalization is more about systems, about institutions, and about technology. So let's look at the citizenship types. We've already done those citizenship types in the various units that we have done earlier. There is just sanguinis, right of blood, parentage, just soli, the right of soil, where the citizenship of a child is determined by a place of birth, whereas just sanguinis is, if the parent is a citizen of a particular country, the child gets that citizenship of the country. Matrimony is when a person acquires citizenship by marriage. And then there is naturalization, a legal process by which a foreigner is given citizenship. Again, it depends on the rules of the country. What is the rule? For example, in India, I think you need to stay 12 years in India before you are given Indian citizenship by naturalization. Citizenship also is not only an inclusionary but an exclusionary device. Remember, it's a political device. In the history of the last 200 years, the idea has been challenged many times by excluded groups like slaves, women, indigenous groups, refugees. Conflict-ridden areas, many groups get excluded from the right of citizenship. Gulf countries, for example, follow policy of exclusion for migrant workers by not giving them. You cannot get a citizenship in Gulf countries, irrespective of how long you stay out there. So it's a political word, it's a political system where there is inclusion or exclusion. So let's now move from citizenship into transnationalism. And we start with the definition: social phenomena which has developed into a field of study. The study of transnationalism explores how an increasingly connected world through both internet and global travel impacts the relevance of different boundaries and borders of nation. Remember, at the end of the day, all studies are studies of human beings. And how do human beings affect various systems, institutions, and processes? More precisely defined as a social field, because it consists of human beings transcending national affiliations. Growing number of people lead a kind of double life. Expropriation of borders. The world is seeing the rise of new practices of citizenship. As I said, a person who migrated from British India before the partition, who he is a citizen of what? The new state of Pakistan, the new state of India, or the new state of Bangladesh. And that person could have been possibly staying in Delhi, gone to Lahore, moved to Dhaka. He was still in India, British India. And then he moved to the US. Where is he a citizen? So he or she becomes a transnational in a way. And similarly, the processes are happening today where people keep moving. When the people move, they are moving from one country to another. It's a set of transnationalism because if you remember, there's a very interesting example, a very reductionist example, which I took at the onset when I started, taking this class. The example of the Indian system of the girl moving into the boy's family after marriage. Now, once the girl moves into the boy's family after marriage, does she stop being the daughter of her parents and becomes only the wife or the daughter-in-law of the family she moves in? So she does not stop being a daughter. That identity of that daughter continues. And now there is this new identity of a daughter-in-law as well as a wife. And then when she becomes a mother, there is a new identity of mother which comes in. Now, these are multiple identities she has to juggle with. Similarly, when a person leaves India and settles in Europe, let's say Germany, he or she does not stop being an Indian. They might acquire a German citizenship, but he or she was always a citizen of India, and there are networks back home which He or she cannot leave. He or she cannot. Even the next generation may start with a German citizenship. However, the various cultural components and the various identity markers will. So Kamala Harris is still an Indian American, or all those people who are in the US scheme of things are still called the second or third generation, are still called Indian Americans. Purity of nation states reorient themselves to accommodate transnational practice. And then there are these transnational practices. So when Rishi Sunak, who becomes the Prime Minister of Britain, is a practicing Hindu in terms of a religion, does he leave that practice just because he's the Prime Minister of a country which is predominantly Christian? Now, these are transnational practices. So discussions centering transnationalism are inherently multi and transdisciplinary. They span discourses on socio-cultural activities, cross-border entrepreneurship. Also remember the fact that human beings throughout history, when they were migrating, they just didn't migrate and stay put. They were doing something. They were forming networks, they were forming associations. There's a Okay, so Naman is asking, how can we assign more than one identity to citizenship by legal definition, as India does not allow? India does not allow dual citizenship, but they have circumvented this thing by the OCI. The, when you get an OCI card, you are allowed to have multiple entries and exit out of India, multiple. So every time you don't need a visa. Now, what is happening is they are encouraging Indians to come back. Why are they encouraging Indians to come back? Is because remember, the the girl got married and went into the boy's family, does not stop, does not, then she does not stop being the daughter of this family. So tomorrow, if her parents fall ill, it would be on her as a child to take care of the parents, as she does take care of the parents of the husband's family, the daughter-in-law. Similarly, when an Indian goes outside, he has the network of family and other kinship relations which are still out here. He doesn't stop being an Indian, he or she. When I say he, I'm using a single gender, but he or she does not stop being an Indian. And in that case, if the country is legally or in terms of law does not have a dual citizenship, they would have to find out ways to engage, because it is benefiting India. Because if you are going to cut out, see, this person will send remittances back home. That money is used by the country. So either way, it's a win-win for everything, everybody. Naman? Naman? Okay. So remember, the identities don't just go away. We all human beings work with multiple identities. Those identities are flexible. The identities also, we tend to identify with things based on convenience and based on many other things. So today, if I was, let's say I'm in the US, I am a US citizen, but I originally hail from India. And if I'm able to make a political headway by bringing out my Indian identity card, or in the Indian identity card, my Punjabi identity card, why won't I? So you see, there are multiple identities that I carry with me, and which is what I play with, based on each individual, based on what is desirable and what is convenient or what gives benefit. Naman? So, multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, there are socio-cultural activities, there are cross-border entrepreneurship, there is this everyday practice. Uh, then there is study in post-migration, political parties, right to vote, dual identity, citizenship, to name a few. So these are multiple areas, like for example, diasporic study also involves history, also involves geography. For example, when a person moves from one geography to another, what changes happens in the person? There is a geographical alteration. So, for example, when an Indian moves from India to Canada, there is a geographical change in terms of, let's say, the climate. How does a person cope with that? So there is history, there's geography, there is political science, it becomes an interdisciplinary study. The term transnational was popularized in earlier 20th century. 1920, actually, it came about by Randolph Bourne to describe a new way of thinking about relationship between cultures. Merriam-Webster Dictionary states in 21 was the year that the term transnational was first used in print, which was after Bourne's death. So again, this is not a new term in the newness sense of the word. Like diaspora, transnationalism has been there for a long time, and now it has picked up in terms of multiple scholars talking about it, multiple research happening in uh, transnationalism. The most relevant and recent literature regarding translation was understood as being a component of globalization from which it cannot be separated. However, the two terms are not interchangeable. Stated that globalization refers to all activities spanning social, economic, and political fields that cause greater interaction and interconnectedness between countries and continent. Transnationalism is about people. So, transnationalism was already happening before the term globalization or the components of globalizations hit in. Now it becomes easier for transnationalism to happen because people can move, people can see what is happening. So today, everything which happens in the homeland affects hostland, and everything which happens in hostland affects homeland. And that's what we were talking about with internet and with global connectivity and with social media. Every aspect of homeland issues now affect diaspora, which in turn comes back to affect homeland. And that's where somewhere down the line, the politics and the polity and the governance and the bureaucrats are a slow off the ground because things are moving very fast. Transnationalism concerns individuals and civil society movements across borders and how increased global connectedness affects those movements. Anything or everything that one would say, or a politics or a politician or a political party would say in the homeland would affect people in the diasporic formations in hostland, which then would come back and hit the homeland. So there is a convergence which has happened in terms of all this. So again, another term, civil society. How does civil society get defined? Consists of groups of individuals and institutions which are independent of state and state boundaries. So, for example, Amnesty International or Center for Science, these will come under civil society, independent of state and state boundaries. And in fact, a very important part of a democracy is civil society, because civil society then puts pressure on the political system to be able to be sensitive towards to the citizens, individuals, and others, so and so forth. So Schiller, 1992 definition defined transnationalism as the process by which immigrants build social fields that link together the country of origin and the country of settlement. Diasporas, meanwhile, are links which the people who have migrated form among each other to be able to, give a sense of belonging to them. Remember, diasporas, classical definitions of diasporas are about people who have migrated. They have, this thing about homeland, this connection of homeland, the yearning for homeland, and they are also looking at somewhere down the line wanting to come back. In transnationalism, there's no coming back. Now they are there and now they are influencing each other. Social fields that link together their country of origin and their country of settlement. They are settled there. They are forming these diasporic links among other people from the same country. At the same time, they are linking back to their own country. So today, when the Indian Prime Minister goes and meets diasporas, basically it's a transnational phenomena because those diasporas then will come back and influence the polity in the country. Transmigrants develop and maintain multiple relations, familial, economic, social organization, religious, and political that span borders. Transmigrants take action, make decisions, and feel concerns and develop identities within social network that connects them to two or more societies simultaneously. So the Indian in the US who's a American citizen will possibly go to a gurdwara or a temple or a mosque, but at the same time will celebrate Halloween or and Thanksgiving. I've known so many Indians who celebrate Thanksgiving. So they are developing identities within social networks that connect them to two or more societies simultaneously. There are multiple. Now you can understand why such a person, and there was always this talk about the NRIs being confused. You need to understand the fact that here are these people who maintain multiple identities concurrently. And when they are going to be maintaining multiple identities concurrently, there is going to be a sense of confusion. So, is the Indian American an Indian or an American? Because if he's an American, then the Indian diasporic community will laugh at that person. But if he's an Indian, he will get laughed at by the American peers. So the first generation, possibly who goes after migration, is still okay, but the second generation becomes extremely confused because there is a pressure of Indianness in terms of Indian culture, and the child, the boy or the girl, sees Americanness in terms of American culture, and these are two different cultures. And now this person is straddling two identities and two cultures. And he has to be politically correct to straddle these two cultures. Otherwise, he's going to make a mockery of himself or herself. These definitions highlighted the relevance of migrants' agency. Now, this what I'm saying is a right thing, but it also highlights that migrants have an agency. Migrants are not just those scared, poor people who are in an alien place. Transnationalism allows them to have an agency. In a globalized world covering many overlapping economic, social, and political fields and hinting that transnationalism ontologically consists of relevant dynamic cross-border relationship and activities. So today, if you see, there are these Indian Americans who are heading American companies. There are these Indian Americans who are in the politics. They are in both Democrats as well as Republicans. They are fighting for senators, Congress. There is a presidential candidate who's an Indian. There's a vice president today who's an Indian American. So there is an agency which this Indian, and it's not just Indians. Look at the Chinese. Look at the Mexicans. Regardless of the type, cultural, social, political, economic of relationship involves. There is these basically they come together, their networks get created, and then there is an agency which is demonstrated. And this process of meaningful relation building is not static, but is continuously evolving and becoming, greatly contributing to the future people's dual or plural identities and sense of being. Coming back, the girl who's got married and gone to the boy's family, now there's a relationship building with the father-in-law, with the mother-in-law, with the husband, and there is an identity of the daughter with her parents. This is not static, this is continuously evolving. And there's a plural identity for that girl. Similarly, it's not just the girl, the husband. The husband is forging a new identity with his in-laws' families, with the society in terms of a husband. He was a boy, he's now a husband, and then he'll become a father. Cross-border activities have always existed in history. Today, not only earlier patterns have been intensified or become more common, but new processes and dynamics are involved. So, how things have, changed. Ports distinguishes four categories of action carried out across national borders: those conducted by nation states, those conducted by formal institutions that are based in a single country. One and two are international. Those conducted by formal institutions that exist and operate in multiple countries, multinational. And those conducted by non-institution actors from civil society, transnational. So today, a large part of the global uh, political, cultural, economic realm are conducted by non-state actors. For example, if you see the Israel-Gaza war, the Israel-Palestinian war is being done by a non-state actor. And there is a large part of the global community which is involved. There are non-state actors which are performing. Majority of scholars have agreed that transnationalism is from below and concerns civil society as well as individuals and their formal. We have seen this diasporic processes from below and from above. In fact, when we were talking about the European diaspora, more often than not, most European diasporas had been from above. When we saw the French diaspora, the Dutch diaspora, and the German diaspora, it was always the governments and from above. Whereas the Italian diaspora and most of the Asian and African diasporas from below, where the people were taking charge. The government did not have so many things as the people with their connectedness, with their remittances, a people-led process that exploits the economic and political opportunities presented by globalization and challenges the centralizing tendencies of nationalism. And that's where there is another fight which is going on. Why are nations clamping down on migration? Why are they coming up with this thing called alien or alien immigrants? There is this fight between transnationalism and nationalism because as the world gets globally connected, essentially citizens can move anywhere. However, the larger political body or the politicians or the polity or the states look at it from a security lens and feel this is impinging on the politics of the nation and they are clamping down. Whereas people will continue to move, which we have seen throughout history. Wertowek claimed that the meaning of transnationalism is grounded in six theoretical premises. What are the theoretical premises? Social morphology, social networks spanning borders. There are always these networks. So even when you look at illegal migration in the US, or let's say illegal migration in India, there are these networks which span the countries. These networks then use to get people inside. Illegality is more of a law or the polity definition. Otherwise, these people are moving. Type of consciousness, multiple identities and the sense of belonging. Mode of cultural reproduction, hybridization of various cultural phenomena. So, let me give you an example of a cultural reproduction. In West Punjab, which is currently, hang on, somebody has given a chat. One of the reasons may be the rise of conservative. When we say conservative government is a political party which is looking at a particular polity based on its constituents. All these wordings and definitions that we are giving today are based out of something. What is conservative? Conservative political party is one political party whose constituents feel that all these migrants are basically eating into their job market, and hence this political party forms or orients its orientation towards preventing this migration from coming in. But we also know that migration is good because migrants come and do certain things which your own people are not able to. Say, for example, if migrants did not go and build up Europe, Europe would not be what it is today. If migrants were not there, Qatar would not have been able to hold the World Cup. It was all the migrants which built up the migrants were the reason why Middle East got built up. Migrants are the reason why US is such a prosperous country today, because if you see, all technology is built by migrants from India and China. So, what is conservative and what is not conservative? These are just definitions or wordings or terminology that has been given to suit a particular political thought or an ideology. Naman? So again, one of the reasons for the rise of right wing or conservative governments is the fact that somewhere down the line there is this fight between transnationalism and nationalism. And more often than not, these are reactionary. This is something like this. Parents feel that children are spending too much time on mobile and social media. So what is their reaction to it? Social media is the reason why children are getting bad. But that's not the case. How much time are parents spending with the children? So there are multiple, discourses onto this. This is a very reductionist way of understanding things. So I was giving you an example of cultural reproduction. In West Punjab, which was a part of British India, there is a place called Dera Ghazi Khan. Which is right far west. There is a language called Derewali which is spoken out there. When partition happened, all those people who migrated or were forced to move from West Pakistan or from West Punjab into East Punjab and India carried that language with them. Today, a large part of refugees which had come from West Punjab or the present nation state of Pakistan, who are settled in and around Delhi, speak a language called Derewali. They continue to speak that till today. And it is different from Punjabi. That is how cultural reproduction is happening. And now this language, when it interfaces with Punjabi or Haryanvi or other dialects, with other languages, create dialects. That's how reproduction is happening. Today, for example, a great place to see cultural reproduction is TikTok or Instagram Reels. How songs from various parts of the world suddenly become popular. Old songs become popular with new dance steps from various cultures. modes of cultural reproduction, hybridization of various cultural phenomena. We had seen how there was this food item, if I recollect correctly, called bunny chow in South Africa, which was a part of the bun from India and some local curry from Africa. How this hybridization of cultural phenomena take place. Sushi is popular in America. Japanese sushi is popular in America, and McDonald's is popular in Japan. How the Japanese anime culture is popular across the world. Avenues of capital, activities of transnational cooperation. So inevitably, where people will go, money will follow suit. So how does this money flow about? Site of political engagement, cross-border public participation, political organization. We have seen in European diaspora, most of the European political parties have chapters abroad. Indian political parties now are having their chapters abroad. So much so that diasporas come, for example, in the Punjab elections, there was Punjabi diasporas from America, Canada, and other places who came back to canvass for individual parties. Reconstruction of place, locality, creation of new social spaces across countries. So, for example, there are common places. There is a place called Patel Nagar in Delhi. There's a Patel Nagar in Gurgaon. And I'm sure all these, the China towns which are created across the world, where there is large Chinese creation of a new social space across countries. Okay, I'll take this as the last slide. It's 3:53. I'll take it as the last slide, and then we will spill over to the next class and try and complete it. Meaningful and constant cross-border relationship and activities connect all these aspects, inherently transformative, relevant, and widespread enough to bring societal structure changes. How the structural changes are happening? So for example, there is a place in Delhi, which Delhi had a lot of refugee families which came in from West Punjab and other parts of the current state of Pakistan, who now settled out here. These were extended families. When you now go into certain areas in Delhi, you will find that most of the families are left with old people, whereas the young have migrated. One of the ways caregiving is happening in India, where there are no institutional mechanisms of caregiving, is the fact that all these children who have migrated abroad then send money to the old parents, who then employ maids, and these then maids and drivers. I have a neighbor who is paralyzed. His caregiver is a male nurse from Kerala. And so how these changes are happening. So again, we were seeing last time, people, instead of going from villages to Pune or Bombay, today are traveling to America and Dubai for work. So how these migration are moving, they may contribute significantly to broadening, deepening, or intensifying conjoined processes of transformation that are already ongoing. We had seen in a story where migrants in Kerala, and especially this story was about how during Chhat, almost a lot of work gets stalled in Kerala because a lot of migrants from Bihar who are working in Kerala come back. And when they come back, they are also carrying a part of the culture in terms of house construction, in terms of their everyday life, and they are going to be definitely influencing back in Kerala. Similarly, when Indians go to America, they influence the culture out there, they get influenced by American culture, and then the very concept of celebrating Halloween in India. We have started celebrating Valentine's Day and Halloween in India. Birthdays in villages, birthdays are celebrated. Whereas in most of the villages, most of the childbearing happens at home where people do not understand birthdays. Okay, I think I will stop here. And is if there is any question, let me put my hi. Any questions? Yes,
नमस्ते सर.
हाँ प्रफुल्ल, बत पूछिए पूछिए सवाल.
Sir, I will try to speak in
नहीं
English.
नहीं नहीं, स्पीक इन हिंदी, मैं ट्रांसलेट कर दूंगा.
No, sir. If I stuck somewhere,
ठीक है,
then
not to
I
worry,
will try
not to
to.
worry. Neither me nor any one of your classmates will have a problem. Please ask.
Okay. Sir, can we place transnationalism in between internationalism and the nationalism?
Yes, in a way, we're a reductionist way. Yes, Praful, you can say that.
Uh, because when I was reading about French Revolution, their concept I got there, that the first one is insider and outsider. What was what क्यों ये रखा गया था सर, ये कंसेप्ट को, आउटसाइडर को?
आप मेरे से सवाल कर रहे हैं या मुझे बता रहे हैं?
आपसे पूछ रहा हूँ सर. आई एम
हाँ, सो
आस्किंग टू यू.
प्रफुल्ल रिमेंबर, हर प्रोसेसेस के अंदर एज वी एज जैसे आप स्कॉलरशिप करेंगे और एकेडमिक्स पढ़ेंगे, आप देखेंगे इन ऑल प्रोसेसेस inevitably there is a certain amount of politics which comes in. There is a political process. तो जब मैं इनसाइडर आउटसाइडर, जैसे मैं सिटीजनशिप की बात करता हूं, सिटीजनशिप में मैं इंक्लूजन भी कर सकता हूं, एक्सक्लूजन भी कर सकता हूं. आई कैन डू इंक्लूजन एज वेल एज एक्सक्लूजन. So there is a politics behind it. There's a political process behind it. For example, let's look at CAA, the recently passed Citizens Amendment Act, where they are talking about certain religions from certain countries will not be treated as aliens, but others will. So obviously there is a political process. When they are talking about a wall, when America is talking about building a wall on the Mexico side, but not on the Canada side, there is a certain political process which comes in. Praful? तो वो
यस सर.
अंदर वाला और बाहर वाला एक डेफिनेशन है जो पॉलिटिक्स से इन्फ्लुएंस होता है. एंड रिमेंबर, हिस्टोरिकली हर चीज के अंदर हम जब कहते हैं ना कि ये पॉलिटिक्स नहीं, हर चीज के अंदर एक पॉलिटिकल प्रोसेस होता है और पॉलिटिक्स होती है. घर में भी जब इन अ हाउस होल्ड ऑल्सो, व्हेन देर आर टू चिल्ड्रन और बिटवीन टू पार्टनर्स, देर इज पॉलिटिक्स. There is an identity politics, there is a gender politics, there is a sexual politics. That is why political processes or political science is a very important thing to understand. जब भी हम एक चीज पढ़ते हैं, पॉलिटिक्स को साथ साथ पढ़ते हैं, and one needs to understand that. Praful?
Yes sir, I think internationalism is better than the nationalism sir.
देखो, बेटर करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है, बिकॉज यू हैव टू फर्स्ट देन डिफाइन क्या बेटर है और किस चीज में बेटर है.
Because they have certain kinds of no boundaries in between the nations. The
ओके,
people can
सो
freely,
सॉरी, बोलिए बोलिए, पूरे कंप्लीट कीजिए.
people can move globally cross territories also.
Absolutely. So transnationalism actually tells that people are actually moving freely. But अब प्रॉब्लम क्या है? देर इज अ नेशनलिज्म इन टर्म्स ऑफ नेशंस एंड नेशनैलिटी, एंड उसके साथ एक सिटीजनशिप है. बट लोग तो मूव करेंगे, पीपल विल कंटिन्यू टू मूव. माइग्रेशन विल नॉट बी स्टॉप्ड. You cannot stop migration, because if you try and stop migration, then people will illegally migrate.
Yes sir.
So inevitably, that's why transnationalism is a field of study where you're looking at how does this migration actually affect communities, societies, and nations.
But we are still facing in case of Bangladesh and India and such situation in US and Mexico also.
See,
They
that
are
facing that you're talking about is from a particular security lens and from a political lens. Because one political narrative is that this is wrong. Why is this wrong? Because from a security lens, it becomes a problem. तो
Yes, sir.
उसको देखने का तरीका है. देखिए, एकेडमिक्स और स्कॉलरशिप के अंदर राइट रॉन्ग नहीं होता. दीज आर पर्सपेक्टिव्स. स्कॉलरशिप के अंदर और पढ़ाई लिखाई के अंदर, इन 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 एकेडमिक्स, वी डू नॉट लुक एट राइट एंड रॉन्ग्स. दीज आर मल्टीपल पॉइंट्स ऑफ व्यू.
Yes, sir.
We look at right and wrong from specific, political point of view or economic point of view or technological point of view. But in a larger academics, let's say, for example, in diasporic studies or transnational studies, we do, or migration studies, we are not looking at right and wrong. We are looking at this is what is happening. Why is this happening? We are trying to figure that out. And what will be the outcome is what we are figuring it out. Rafal?
Sir, I think it is due to diaspora, sir. We want the relation between we and other nations also.
तो अगेन एक पर्टिकुलर पर्सपेक्टिव कहता है कि डायस्पोरा इन व्हेन वी डू डायस्पोरिक स्टडीज, वी आल्सो स्टडी पॉलिटिक्स. ट्रांसनेशनल स्टडीज के अंदर वी डू नॉट स्टडी पॉलिटिक्स. इज जस्ट दैट व्हाट इज हैपनिंग विद पीपल और वो एक दूसरे को कैसे इन्फ्लुएंस कर रहे हैं. प्रफुल्ल?
यस सर. सर जैसे ये जो ट्रांसनेशनलिज्म है सर, आई थिंक इट इज ऑन ऑफ सॉर्ट सर. सर कभी कभी जैसे अगर वॉर्स की सिचुएशंस होती है सर, तो मेनी जो यहाँ के जो इंडिजेंट है पर्सन्स हैं या जो भी माइग्रेट करके वहां गए हैं, तो उस सिचुएशंस में वो एलियन हो जाते हैं. हम ही इसमें
करेक्ट.
तो आई थिंक
जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल जापानीज जो अमेरिका में थे बिफोर द वर्ल्ड वॉर टू हैपेंड बिटवीन अमेरिका एंड जापान. वंस द जापान अटैक्ड द पर्ल हार्बर, all these people were interned. These Japanese were considered aliens and put in jail.
Yes, sir.
तो this is a sense that, जब ऐसी चीजें होती हैं, how does that influencing happen? In fact, when India and China had the 62 war, there were a lot of Chinese settled in Calcutta. There was a whole Chinatown. They went into trouble and a lot of them then finally migrated out of India. So this will continue to happen because remember, the identities then clash, and then there is this security lens which the polity looks from. जो academics का होता है to just study what is there and produce papers, produce research to see इस चीज से क्या होता है और उस चीज से क्या होता है. प्रफुल्ल?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other question?
I have, sir, but I am forgetting.
हाँ. Next time पूछ लेना, लिख लेना. प्रफुल्ल अपने क्वेश्चन लिख लेना. We will carry on this class next time, next Saturday at 3 o'clock. At that moment, you can ask me the question.
Sir, something can I ask you?
Please.
Regarding this topic, but
sorry.
इस टॉपिक से ही रिगार्डिंग है सर, लेकिन थोड़ा सा एक्सटर्नल हो जाता है. जो मैंने एक मूवी देखी थी, मिस चटर्जी एट नॉर्वे, आई थिंक द मूवी नेम. तो उस मूवी में जो कल्चरल डायस्पोरा और ये लाइवलीहुड का जो कॉन्सेप्ट था सर, उसमें आप जैसे इंडियंस जो वहां जाते हैं,
एक मिनट. इज एवरीबॉडी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड हिंदी? स्वदेश हिंदी? Kangat would know, of course. Swadesh?
Yeah, I am getting very well.
Okay. If anybody is not getting, I will translate. हाँ, प्रफुल्ल आगे बोलिए. Miss Chatterjee in Norway.
Yeah, then what happened, sir? जब यहाँ से हस्बैंड वाइफ दोनों वहाँ रहते हैं. हस्बैंड काम करता है और जो उसकी वाइफ होती है घर पे रहती है. उन दोनों का बच्चा भी होता है. तो आफ्टर डैट क्या होता है कि बच्चा होता है तो वहाँ का जो पॉलिसीज है, जो मतलब जो गवर्नमेंट होगी, वो मतलब बच्चे का देखभाल करेगी. ये अपने तरफ से। तो उस टाइम में मदर जो होती है, जैसे इंडिया के कल्चर में है कि मदर फीड करती है अपने बच्चों को अपने हाथ से, तो वो मतलब वो मानते थे कि ये थोड़ा अनहाइजीनिक है। और यहाँ जैसा होता है कि हस्बैंड्स केवल कमाते हैं, औरतें घर में काम करती हैं, तो वहाँ मतलब ये अनएक्सेप्टेबल था, और
बिल्कुल
बच्चे को फिर से स्टडी में ले लिया था। तो दिस थिंग्स आर आई थिंक कल्चरल डिफरेंस, ड्यू टू
करेक्ट
कल्चरल।
करेक्ट 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 प्रफुल्ल, इसीलिए हम ये बता रहे थे ना कि ट्रांसनेशनलिज्म में व्हेन वी लुक एट दीज कल्चरल क्लैशेस, देन इनएविटेबली द पीपल हु आर, जो लोग इस कल्चर, दोनों कल्चर्स को नेगोशिएट कर रहे हैं, दे गो थ्रू अ लॉट, देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ पेन विच दे गो थ्रू, बिकॉज वो अब इंडियन कल्चर को फॉलो करें या नॉर्वेज कल्चर और यूरोपियन कल्चर को फॉलो करें, एंड इनएविटेबली उनके लिए आइडेंटिटी देन बहुत मुश्किल हो जाती है, एंड अ लॉट ऑफ सच पीपल देन इनएविटेबली रेज देयर हैंड्स और वापस आ जाते हैं, कहते हैं हमसे नहीं डील होता। और द सेकेंड ऑल्टरनेटिव फिर वो करते हैं कि वो वहां के जो इंडियन नेटवर्क्स हैं उसको ज्वाइन करते हैं टू फिगर आउट कैसे डील करें इस सबको। प्रफुल्ल,
यस सर।
बट ये तो सेम चीज है जब एक लड़का या लड़की यूपी से लेट्स से नौकरी के लिए बॉम्बे जाते हैं या केरला जाते हैं या कैलकाटा जाते हैं, कोलकाता अब, देर इज अ क्लैश ऑफ कल्चर्स, बिकॉज जो केरला में कल्चर होगा या जो दिल्ली में कल्चर होगा या जो बॉम्बे में कल्चर होगा या जो कैलकाटा में कल्चर होगा विल नॉट बी। आई गिव यू वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग एग्जाम्पल प्रफुल्ल। मैं कॉलेज के टाइम यूपी गया था दिल्ली से। दिल्ली में मेरा ब्रेकफास्ट होता था ब्रेड ऑमलेट। मैं ईस्टर्न यूपी के एक टाउन में गया जहां ब्रेकफास्ट होता था पूरी आलू। मैं पहली बार घर से बाहर निकला था कॉलेज टाइम पे, एंड मैं को पूरी आलू खाया नहीं जा सकता था, एंड देन आई स्टार्टेड रोमिंग अराउंड टू फाइंड ब्रेड ऑमलेट, बिकॉज दिल्ली में मैं ब्रेड ऑमलेट खाता था। लुक एट अ स्मॉल थिंग एज ब्रेकफास्ट एंड अ चेंज ऑफ कल्चर। और फिर मैं पूरा शहर ढूंढ मारा, मुझे ब्रेड ऑमलेट नहीं मिला, एंड सब्सिक्वेंटली देन आई हैड टू नेगोशिएट to subsequently find out places which give bread omelette and simultaneously try and eat puri aloo. प्रफुल्ल,
यस सर, आई अंडरस्टैंड सर।
तो ये नेगोशिएशन हम इंडिविजुअल्स ह्यूमन बींग्स करते हैं अक्रॉस। एंड ट्रांसनेशनलिज्म में क्या होता है कि नाउ यू आर लुकिंग एट टू डायमेट्रिकली अपोजिट कल्चर्स, एंड देन हमारी आइडेंटिटी के साथ, अच्छा जैसे मैं यहां से दिल्ली से यूपी जाता हूं तो मैं कहता हूं मैं इंडियन हूं, आई एम ओनली इन, आई एम चेंज माई प्लेस। बट अगर मैं यूएस जाता हूं, नाउ आई एम एन इंडियन इन अमेरिका, दे आइडेंटिटीज में देखो कैसे प्रॉब्लम आता है। दिस इज अ पार्ट ऑफ ट्रांसनेशनलिज्म। हाउ डज इट अफेक्ट, where does it, how, what networks does it come, then how do I negotiate? But transnationalism says that now I have an agency, कि मैं अपने नेटवर्क्स बनाता हूं। अब मैं व्हाट्सएप से अपने घर बात कर सकता हूं एवरी डे, दैट गिव्स मी अ सेंस ऑफ कंफर्ट एंड सिक्योरिटी। प्रफुल्ल,
यस सर।
ठीक है,
वन मोर सर,
पूछो।
related to previous class sir.
हाँ जी,
uh, is that migration and diaspora are the same thing, but एक जैसा मैं समझ रहा हूँ सर, I think migration is a species and the diaspora is a genus. Is it right or not?
माइग्रेशन इज अ स्पीसीज would anybody like to answer this, species and genus? रोहित, would anybody like to answer this question, species and genus? I would, I
Well, in fact, it's very difficult to tell the meaning. Please, somebody tell us.
हाँ, genus and species. Genus would be a specific part of species. Genus would be, I think, Praful, species is a larger component. So migration is definitely the larger component. And once these migrants form networks based on certain components, or based on certain criterias, then they become diasporas. So obviously, yes, Praful, in a way, species and genus might be a good comparison. Praful?
Yes. Thank you, sir. No more questions, sir.
Okay. So we will stop the class here itself. You have a nice weekend, and we'll see next Saturday at 3 o'clock, and we'll continue this, and we'll go on to the next unit also, depending on the time. Okay, guys. Bye then.